Welcome, brothers. Welcome, sisters. Welcome to our program On Target. And as usual, as soon as we start this program, we invite people to participate, make your contributions. 91.9. And we also on Facebook and YouTube. And brothers, we're totally against the action taken by Deacon Mitchell against Haiti. We encourage you to play your music. I'm sorry. Whether you're on a bus or in a DJ or other radio stations, give us a play of the music. Haiti, I'm sorry. That is one of the ways of telling the rest of the world and the Caribbean that what took place is not like us. It just happened that we have a fake in this era of time. Obviously, Deacon Mitchell was not aware. The Prime Minister did not know. He didn't know that Henry Christophe was born in Grenada. He didn't know that one of the first black king in Haiti was a Grenadian. He didn't even know that Fedor had a number of brothers and sisters in Grenada. And I doubt he knew anything about Eric Gairy. So today we will provide more information for you, but also more information for Deacon Mitchell. Deacon Mitchell, you ought to understand, you're creating an embarrassment for the whole country. Grenada is not like that. We must reach out. We must open our hearts and our hands for it. A lot of people like to talk the talk, but they don't want to walk the talk. Eric Gairy, one of Grenadian leader, he definitely walked the talk. We have a caller? Let's take that call. Caller, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Pierre, how are you? Good morning.
Great, man.
Yeah, I know what I was calling to give my opinion about. You started it. Yeah, concerning we continue to be talking about the slave, and we were slaves and so forth. And the thing about it is, if we could remember all that, and we yet not remembering, we was bawling, we was crying, and we yet not remembering that will liberate us. But we continue to talk about the slaves and who was slave. But we got up from there. But what we're not talking about, how we was liberated. And what kind of get me so concerned is, if we've been liberated somehow from where we were and where we are today, and we're not talking about the time of liberation to where we are, and we continue talking about the slave, I really want to know where we are, if we exactly know where we are. And I heard you said sometimes on your program, some history, some it says, how to where we are right now, I don't think we know exactly where we're going if we achieve anything. So I hope we go back and look at the whole history better than we are doing right now. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Colin. Brother, perhaps you could tell us something about our own history.
Thank you, Mr. Pierre. Pleasant good evening to you. Good program. Today is a very important day in the history of our country and the history of Eric Matthew Gairy. Eric Matthew Gairy was born in St. Andrew on the 22nd of February, on the 18th of February, 1922. He started his profession as a teacher at the Lafayette Government School. He then migrated to Trinidad after World War II and worked on the Chaguaramas base, then went to and returned to Grenada in 1949. And that was the start of the liberation of our country. And I think it is very important that we should look at the first 23 years of Eric Matthew Gairy as a union leader and as a politician of this country leading us to independence. So to begin with, he started the Grenada Manual and Methodist Union in a union that started for the presentation of the most country. We talk about people who work on the estates, laborers, the scavengers, people that refer to as travel. And this group of people, the most oppressed people in Grenada, had no representation, and therefore it took Eric Matthew to form this union for the liberation of these people. The union was not recognized by the government, and because at the time, we must appreciate that the country was run by a legislative and executive council when we, the ordinary people of this country, had no franchise, and therefore it was very difficult for the plantocracy to recognize a union to represent the people from the lowest rung of the social and economic ladder. And therefore, it took action for the union to be recognized. And on this day in history, in 1951, the British government, having been informed by the then acting governor, G.C. Green, that Eric Matthew Gairy had mobilized his people for a massive strike. And so, Governor Arundel, who was in England at the time, informed the British Home Office. And so, a ship, it was Devonshire, which was at harbor in Barbados, was sent to Grenada to avoid strike, because Green said to Arundel, if Gairy should come to town with this mass group of people, the Grenada police force was in no position to stop what would have happened, what would have taken place in St. George's. But it is instructive to note that at that point in time, we had very few vehicles. And people who owned vehicles were the same people who was in government. It therefore means that nearly all the workers from that grouping had to walk to the tongue of St. George. And we must understand that role that Eric Matthew Gairy played in the liberation of this country. And I think it is most fitting today that come Saturday, that this great liberator be 101 years old. And we see it pertinent and remind our people of the struggle that went through in order to be where we are today, to have an independence, so that we have our own anthem and to be and take up our rightful position. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, my brothers and sisters, listen. Today, as I said, very, very important for Grenadians. We must also understand that is the only union in Grenada, the Grenada Manual and Mental Workers Union, to form a political party. The Grenada United Labour Party came from the struggle of the poor and working class people of this country. And so we always had to struggle for what we think was just. So Gairy didn't just fight a cause for a just cause. And we want you to remember those days. Because when Eric Gairy did not, the battleship that came in did not deter Uncle, as he was called. The strike went on. There was no labor commissioner in Grenada at the time to negotiate any settlement. So after Gairy was arrested here in Gasca and Blaise, the General Secretary of the Union, Gairy was exiled to Carriacou. And so the union members was like a ship without a rudder, or ship without a shepherd. And so hell broke loose on that social revolution is what is referred today in history as Skyred. That was the social revolution. One battleship was insufficient. The might of our oppressed people. And so 3 days later, another battleship came from Trinidad. And that battleship with Grenadians police, we lost 4 lives. If you go to Latant, you would see a monument there. Forgetter Fraser, Snell Fraser, and John Duncan. And we had one tomb in Brudge Grove for Eric Matthew. These 4 people, we call them the martyrs of the social revolution, whose blood was shed so Grenada could be in the position in which it is today. As a result of the 1951 strike, Grenadians, after the settlement, when Mr. Balrup came, because Governor Arunda had to bring in a labor commissioner from England, because there was no labor commissioner in Grenada to whoever had any experience in dealing with industrial strike. So the Grenada Manual and Mental Workers Union was the first union in Grenada to take industrial action against the oppressors of our country. Because of the success of the strike, the union organized the Grenada United Labour Party, one of the most successful party and to govern the. So when we look at what has happened in our country, we must say hats off to those oppressed people of Grenada who fought that we should have a franchise. And so on the 10th of October, over the age of 20, regardless to the social, they voted for the Grenada United Labour Party to form the first government under adult suffrage in this country. It's also important to note that in Carriacou, where Frederick Bridgewater Patterson dominated the political scene, that Gairy took a school teacher, Cyril St. Bernard Sylvester, the grandfather of our now present Governor General, who contested that seat in Carriacou. And the Grenada United Labour Party was successful in Carriacou. But Mr. St. Bernard didn't last for too long. He died. And the Grenada United Labour Party introduced women into politics. And so his widow, popularly known in Carriacou as Mama Eva, she contested that by-election and also was successful and was the first female politician to sit in the Legislative Council of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. So throughout the years, we have seen and understand that Eric Matthew Gairy understands the dynamics of politics. He understood gender balance, and so he always was interested in having women in politics in Grenada, so as to balance off, so as to soften the men, because we know men could be very hard and they could take some very harsh decisions. Eric Matthew Gairy never left the people behind.
Never, man. Meet the people too.
Yeah.
Bootstring. Never let the people behind, man.
Right? Yeah. You don't. And he also for the kindergarten education, because when he went to a the people tour in one of the communities, the people say, "Oh God, uncle, he has some little children in this community. Only bad word they cursing. You see, if they could curse bad words, they could go to school." And so he engaged all the society halls in Grenada during that time at the Benevolent Society, and there was many society halls, and he employed people from the communities to teach in those schools, which now today is what we call early childhood education, started by Eric Matthew Gairy. So Mr. Pierre, as we go along, we cannot expound too much. No praise is too much for the contribution that Eric Matthew Gairy has made to this country. We also have to touch point too, that while we are in Black History Month, we must remember two outstanding Grenadians. Henry Christophe, born in Sans Souci, a Grenadian, and he called the presidential palace in Haiti Sans Souci. So if Grenadians should go to Haiti, they could identify with that name, and the name Henry Christophe, a man that was born in Grenada and became Haiti's first president. We also must look at the fact of another Grenadian hero who liberated the people of Trinidad, who was oppressed in the oil field. And Boswell Butler is a man who fought for those oppressed people. That march from Faizabad to Port of Spain, that was the liberation of the Oilfield Workers Union. And the Oilfield Workers Trade Union became the most powerful trade union in Trinidad. And so, as a mark of gratitude, the people of Trinidad today are celebrating Labor Day on June, the birthday of Boswell Butler, a Grenadian who fought for the most oppressed people.
Definitely, man. And we must know that. That is why I say somebody history in school is a joke. It's a joke. When you learn history, you must be vibrant. You must be on fire. You must be patriotic. You must be dynamic. You must want more. And you must want to help our people. We have created a breed of individual now. They don't like poor people. They're against the elderly. They're against the marginalized. Every time they open their mouth, their expression, their aspersions, the statement they're making is derogative. Yes, Colin, punch.
Yes, good afternoon, Pierre. And I must congratulate you in your opening statements and with that song that you played, that everybody on the highways and the byways should play that song today. And over the last caller, history, he always, impart real knowledge, open the minds and especially the young people to give them that sort of information. That is. But Mr. Pierre, I want to extend solidarity and to the region. Yes, as a people in Grenada, I'm really embarrassed with this with the Haitian people over the weekend. And I know in Grenada, as for me and a lot of Grenadians are embarrassed. Because when you look at international and regional solidarity, we in Grenada didn't stand alone when was Hurricane Ivan, when was Hurricane Janet, and other disasters. Yes, international solidarity help us to build better. And when one neighbor house on fire, we have to wet ours. And we have to reach out, love, care. Because if it wasn't the international solidarity, the people of Cuba, what they have given to us in Grenada as well, medical doctors and surgeons, that we are enjoying the services to save the lives of our people in Grenada. And Mr. Pierre, when you look at what the last caller talked about, the persons that was working, in that time with Sir Eric, most of them are the real senior people in the 80s and 90s. And when you see them going to get medications and seeking medical assistance, it bothers me when I see one of them, the $150 is deducted from the money, where they could buy eye drops for the eyes, food to eat, and their survival. So
Pampers, a little disinfectant.
Yes. And Mr. Pierre, I want you to keep up that program and let us continue. You're struggling and fight for oppressed working people in this country because this administration, I believe the people have to understand what is cheese and what is chalk. And
Thank
what
you,
to
Colonel.
believe.
Yeah. Thank you, Colonel. I think sometimes we feel past. We are in back. We must not know that. The Prime Minister did fake. We can't hold with it. I strongly suggest and advocate that he use somebody else in finance. We're going to continue to be embarrassed publicly. Look at this, what is happening now. Look at the manner in which he treat the Haitian people. Yes, Colonel, welcome. Punch.
Good afternoon, Mr. Pierre, and good afternoon to Mr. Brave Boy. I want to first of all congratulate you for your program, continuing your program, and Mr. Brave Boy for the wonderful piece you have given us there. A lot of food for thought, but I'm not certain if our people, our present people, knows a part of it or know much of it, because I don't think that what he read there would have taught in school.
Not read, man. Read. You read nothing. What he say?
Okay, what? All right. What he says, I don't know if our people, our teachers in school.
Not teachers in school. We that to teach his history. The history they're teaching in school is not that.
Well,
we the people. That's what I tell you.
Documented somewhere there.
Don't waste time with history in school. But not once who documented, you writing anything? You are writing, I am writing. So we have to teach the children our history. The school not
somewhere.
Why we have this thing going on in the school. That's why Deacon doing that, you know. Deacon don't know. Nobody taught him.
In any case, I would have been about 3 years old when Mr. Gairy came to Grenada. And I was living at Moncton at that time. And
when Gairy come to Grenada, Gairy born in Grenada.
Well, when he came back to Grenada.
You know Miss Iris from Paraclet?
No.
That's his sister.
I don't know his sister, but what I know is that Mr. Gairy and myself are very good relatives, because Mr. Gairy's mother and my grandmother, Makimbi, was 2 sisters' children.
Right. So you have to teach your children that.
Well, I've taught them what the parts that I know already.
Yeah, yes, thank you.
Yeah, but, I remember hearing about this Skyred, and I was a little boy. I remember Skyred and people walking up and down with guns and whatnot.
Who walking around with gun? The planters.
Well, yes,
people,
the watchman and so had gun. I remember that.
They take the gun and beat up the watchman and send him home. The British send them 2 battleships. What watchman that could handle gun here?
Yeah, but Mr. Pierre, it is instructive to note that whilst our less fortunate people today is been given some assistance to the CES program, but under the leadership of Sir Eric Gairy, he started a Providence Fund, and the Providence Fund one could refer to as the precursor to the NIS, because these people was already paying into a fund. So when they are able to the from the first. So these people always was sort of institutional we can see from little the benevolent society. They used to pay into that. So when they die, they could get benefits, or when they were sick, you know. And those things now no longer exist, and it is now the responsibility of the state to take care of those who have paved the way for us. We must understand that the independence we are about to celebrate, now we are looking at 50 years of independence, was these people who fought for independence for this country. The plantocracy never wanted to have independence under Pierre Gairy, but because of the fact that he had the support of the people at the lowest rung of the social ladder that he was able to make the political strive in which he made.
Let's take that call. Yes, caller, welcome.
Yes, Mr. Pierre.
Yes.
Refer to what the gentleman knows of the Provident Funds. No, the Provident Funds was there, and maybe many people, I remember, if I'm right, that the Pierre government went after it, but they was not successful. But the Provident Funds, which we must give the Hubbard Blaze NNP some gratefulness in finding and releasing this money to many of the poor people who the gentleman who now referred to as the contributor.
Caller. The Provident Fund was started with NIS. The money that was in Provident Fund went in NIS. And
yes,
some people did not get Provident Fund. And there are people alive today who paid Provident Fund. And they say they didn't get the records. And $27 still today.
Yes, okay, yes. But what I'm really trying to say, in the time of the NNP on the Blaze, they did release some money. I remember a lot of people who didn't even thinking about after they had finished work for so long or thinking about anything to get. They got the money, which they said it was from the.
And it's the old Gary's that's fighting all the years.
Yes, that's what I'm
because they say they couldn't get the records. And
what I'm saying is, yes, there was money they secure those people. He's right.
Yeah.
So just like strengthening it.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, welcome.
Yeah. At what time this struggle started? Because the British sent the battleship in anticipation of the struggle in Grenada, but the battleship came early.
Yeah, the battleship came in 3 days before the strike. The battleship came in on the 19th, and the strike was on the 16th. HMS Devonshire came in on the 16th, and the strike was on the 19th. But what you have to understand, that it was 2 years going from 1949 to 1951 that the government of Grenada did not recognize the union. So it was instructed that the union take strike action in order to get the recognition necessary. Because you have to understand that at that one time, you did not know what for the work. Right? Men were working 40 cents and working for 39 cents. And they need different tasks to perform before they get their rest. Because, for instance, in Niangan for estate in Bodge Grove, people from Adelphi, St. James, Beauregard, around lower capital, they had to go through a river called Gangan. And when you reach Gangan, you have to take a stone. Everybody had to go up in the yard with a stone to continue the building of the road in Noble Smith Estate at Niangan for. But one woman from Upper Capital, who was a member of the Greater Manual Man Mental Workers Union, and he had a meeting with them, and he said, we one day work for one day pay. So whilst men were shivering the boats, they left the river. When they took up this stone, she said, put it down. Uncle say, one day work for one day pay. So the struggling people again, you see a woman took the lead when men was frightened because they had a farm. The baby took the lead and led the workers on the Niangan Estate to ensure that was the end of morning work. A very oppressive piece of work by Mr. Noble Smith. So all people went through a lot of many injustice. If you remember, I'll told you here. In 1967, when Gairy turned to power, right, the symbol of the GNP for that election was it. And every night the estate owners would send the trucks, and people go on the truck with the Monsanto. And poor people cried, and they cried, oh, they say, oh God, under this cocoa again with the Monsanto. That was the end of the reign of the Grenada National Party in Grenada. That symbol, the torch,
I think that was the worst symbol they could have put, because the torch represent walking the night.
Masanto. Masanto, you know.
And the fact that morning walk, Grenadians have to understand morning walk. Yeah. The workers reach to work, and they had to do work around the house that they were not paid for. Yeah. And that is why Mama Bascom, baby Bascom, from Capital, Upper Capital, had to instruct the workers. Uncle Gairy said, one day work for one day pay. No money work. Yes, sir. Yes, scholar. Thank you very much. And that call is so important. Your call is so important. We want other Grenadians to make the call. Let us demand that the Prime Minister return the money that he stole from the people in this country. He must return it. So ask him to return it. We don't want to have street matches and other issues for that. It's a simple issue. You took the money away violently from the people. You set them up. You gave them in the month of December. The line minister said that they will get the money. And in January, you took it away. You didn't have the common decency or courtesy to inform them before. They only knew why they was in the line. They shed tears. Some of them, a few of them, shed tears in the street because you deprived them of what they have. Why? Why every time the NDC come in power, immediately they go after the elderly, the physically challenged, and the disadvantaged children in this country? Yes, Scholar Punch.
Good day, sir. It is imperative to know that the seed money has started to pay, and the people was expecting the 150 back, but they did not get it. They get the same 300 today.
But the government have to pay the money. Why the government is not paying the money? Because we have so much Grenadians that seems to turn against the people that is marginalizing the country. That is one of the reasons we're not getting the money. You know. So much Grenadians, they want to see money work. They want to see, they're happy that 70% of the children that go to school can't meet the basic needs. They want their children to succeed, but they want our children to fail. The government is setting up themselves for a struggle that they cannot handle. They could not have handled the struggle in 1951. They will be able to handle it. They must give back the people them. But I believe we could lobby. Good sense could prevail. And obviously, one sees Deacon. I said immediately after the budget that Deacon Mitchell was a fake. People took issue with me. But Mama, you see, Deacon Mitchell went to the United Nations, spoke glowingly about Haiti. The first opportunity he had to show some level of solidarity with Haiti, he turned against them like a viper, you know, like a vulture in the sky. He pounced on them.
Well, Mr. Pierre, my take on this, right? Now, you have ministers in this government who was unemployed. So they never had a salary. When they got into government, the salary of a minister take home was about $6,700 with $800 gas allowance. Within 2 months, that salary was incapable of looking at affairs. So they of $2 on that salary. And the poor and oppressed people of this country, though the pioneers of what we are enjoying today, they receive $400. But you see it fit to take out $1,500 from that contribution you are giving to the poor and oppressed people of this country, but over $6,000 a month cannot look after you, but you expect somebody to live on $5,400 and still take out $1,500 from that. I mean, that is unconscionable. How can we defend such a thing? How can we defend that? Somebody to get $5,400 a year, they could live on that. But you can live on over $6,000 a month? I don't understand. How can we defend that to the people?
Yeah, we have a lot of... Have a call on the line? Yes, call a comment.
Hey,
Punch.
good afternoon, Mr. Pierre.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Miss.
Yes, man.
Mr. Brevoort.
Go right
Good
ahead.
afternoon.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Very informative information to the public. And that's the history that we should know. Not the history of Okolumba discover Grenada. They think that which was not true. Yes, he may discover, but he discovered for who? And Mr. Pierre, I want to look at the philosophy of the two main parties. And I'll give the philosophy of the NMP. Okay? The philosophy of the NMP party in governance is for the benefit of all structure of the population. For the well-off, those that just able to meet their living commitment, those under the breadline, and those that need a hand up, the elder and the youth in the mix. You see, our governmental policies stand on the concept of the greater good for the greater number of people through engagement and social adaptation. That is the philosophy and should be the right philosophy of a government, is to help the benefit of everybody in the country should benefit from that. Right? But when you look at the philosophy of the present government, is to help the rich and rob from the poor. Right? Rob from the poor. And I will say, Mr. Pierre, it's time for we to get to speak about history. Let us remember what people did to us. Because if we don't know history and forget about history first, we will continue to repeat and make the same mistake. The same mistake that we made in 2008 and we made it again in 2022. We need to know. I always say, Mr. Pierre, yes, sometimes you can forgive, but then remember the track record of some people. When they're outside, they speak nice, they speak enticing words. But I always say, the words that you speak is my good and encouragement. But you have to live based on what you say. You cannot speak in love when you're outside. And when people hear you speak enticing with a good, eloquent speaker, what you're doing is the opposite. So, Mr. Pierre, I want to say to the Grenadian people, remember what happened with you in 2023, and don't continue to make the same mistake again. Learn from your mistake.
Thank you, caller.
Okay, thank you, caller. You know, Mr. Pierre, we must look back, as the last caller referred to the NNP and the philosophy. So, if we really look at the history of the NDC, we might not be too surprised, because you have to understand. After the fall of the revolution, and the Eric Gairy family took, and so Eric Martin Gairy took the matter to court for the revolution, confiscating his property. That judgment from the court came in during the Nicholas Bruffett administration. Nicholas Bruffett said that he preferred to go to jail than to give Eric Gairy 1 cent. And it was a time when Eric could say was at its lowest point. And therefore, we must understand, because of the philosophy of the new National Party, in 1996, independence, the first year of Dr. Mitchell as Prime Minister of Grenada, invites Eric So when you look at someone like Eric Gairy, who sacrificed his life for this country, where 2 battleships came in so that the poor and ordinary people of this country should not have a voice, we must ask ourselves today, who this new National Democratic Congress are representing. And from my analysis, they already done in borrowed feathers against the background that those from the plantocracy who cannot bring themselves forward today to ask our people to vote for them, they are using those from among us. You understand? So we'll tell you, a slave that comes from among the slaves could be the war slave. Because you understand, one of the ministers whose mother was a trafficker, right? Who left Cafe and now living in Montu. Look at what they did to the traffickers. And he did not have the gumption and intestinal fortitude to remember that his mother is a trafficker. You look at it, you look at the present Minister of Social Services. You don't understand that he come from the lowest rung of the social and economic ladder. You understand? And so I say, those persons here, they must be dancing borrow feathers. Who are they representing? They are not used by plantocracy to hammer the poor and ordinary people of this country, because those persons who they represent cannot present themselves in office, but they can use their money to attack them so as, to make life difficult for people of our strata.
That's why I asked Hussein DP, because the Prime Minister in fake. In the first year of government, no other politician has done what he has done in the first year. Over 1,000 workers. Look at the dismissive manner, the dismissive way in which he referred to workers. The man closed down marketing board. The St. George's University made reform, they ain't closed down. Bank does make reform, they don't close down. You don't have to close down marketing board to reform it, restructure it. In fact, marketing board should be constantly reformed and restructured. Over 100 workers lost their job.
And that brings us to the point. Like the thing about Eric Gairy. Despite Bishop and Gairy didn't see eye to eye politically, but Gairy had the National Importing Board. And the National Importing Board was to export crops that were not traditionally exported, like nutmeg, cocoa, and bananas. So the farmers who was the other sector of agriculture, they had an entity to sell their product to, and give them guaranteed market. That National Importing Board also brought in sugar, rice, milk, sugar. And brown sugar to sell at a stable price to ensure that our people were not exploited. So we had to understand the legislation of 1973, which started that organization. It was not started by the revolution.
Well, Bishop put the M in it.
He put the M.
The marketing
and National Importing Board. Yeah. But it was a critique. It was a critique of the Grenada United Labour Party and Sir Eric Gairy.
And they concentrate particularly on sugar, milk, and rice, because this was the basic things. And the price would not be exorbitant. What did Dick Mitchell do? Dick Mitchell raised the price of sugar to 20%. Not even 15, 20%. No, what more we want? We buy a cat in a bag. The cat can hold rat. But we embarrass. We shame. So we're going to continue with it. I think the best thing that could happen is to save some face for Dick Mitchell to remove himself from the Ministry of Finance. Or maybe over the years, these people don't know our history. Mr. Blaze say it's like a milk on fire. You're watching it. It must step up and fall. The voices or intelligentsia is not seeking the interests of the ordinary man in this country. So obviously, the ordinary man have to seek his own interests.
You also got to understand, Mr. Pierre. You talk about Howard Blaze. When Howard Blaze joined ranks with Dr. Watts, right, to form GNP, those are the top echelon of the society didn't want Howard Blaze to be their leader. Men like Franklin Colonel, Bowman Campbell, L.C.J. Thomas, they formed the PDM, People Democratic Movement, which was the bourgeoisie party of Grenada. And so in 1957, when we had the first election, the Grenada United Labour Party was challenged by other political parties. So we 4 political parties contesting that election. You had the GLP, you had the GNP, you had the Grenada Federative Labour Party, and the People Democratic Movement. And that movement, People Democratic Movement, that was launched in Carlton. And that is what made Carlton the mecca of Grenada. Franklin Carlyle Noel, the son of Francis Noel, one of the greatest exponents of the nutmeg industry. That man said that he have money to pave the road from Balthazar to Birchgrove. Because between 1939 and 1945, his father bought nutmeg at the lowest possible price ever on the market because we had the World War II. And when he sold that nutmeg, he became a multi. So his son and those others like him, like L.C. Thomas, never wanted Hubert Blaze to be the leader. So that's why they formed. And then later on, after 1960, when the first part council, the PM, the $8 show, and to form the first parliament. And then they realized that government and politics is a numbers game, it's about the people. And the plantocracy did not have the numbers. Because before 1951, only 4% of the people in Grenada was franchised, Only 4%. So there was judge, juror, and executioner. So we still have to ask today, who is this group of NDC representing? This group of Don Brofers, who are they representing? How can they be so wicked to the poor and ordinary people of this country? And that is the people who fought for what we have today.
They never seek the interests of these people, but they always use them because of the numbers game.
Numbers game.
So in 2000, you have a call line, caller, welcome.
Yeah, I want to say to you all, gentlemen, that I support the giving back of the money to the 150 to the people it was taken. I agree that you could do such you see people who should not be getting it. What's wrong with that? But the people who deserve the 150 should be given back. And you are totally right. You're totally right with your composition of the persons that make up the NMP, the NDC, and the GMP. Totally right. You remember Mr. Tim Dennis Noel, who was the part owner of Balthazar too.
He's the son of Carlyle Noel and the grandson of Francis Noel.
That's right, and he ran as for an MP at one, for an NDC at once too. So it is them, and look what happened to the whole of Balthazar now. So they are real independent behavior people, and do not look at the man down there.
No,
quite true.
Yes, I'm saying it, right?
And I think it is time that to document all these things, Mr. Brave Boy.
Well, you
document these things properly, and let we need more to hear more and to know more of those things.
All we need is to continue talking about it, because when you speak the truth, it does burn them, and we have to continue telling our children that. Otherwise, we're making one among the children that don't care about us. The labor, children of labor turn against labor, and they're playing hoity-toity. Why do you think they take all this money from the elderly with such ease? They believe they're in some social class, dons and barrow feathered, fakes. We have to call them out and ask them to give the people back their money. We don't have to have a crisis in Grenada over that small sum. But you see, is a bigger issue, you know. The attitude, the principle, the whole expressions of the National Democratic Congress. Every time they come in power, immediately they go after the ordinary people and the marginalized.
Because you have these are the people who keep them out of office so many times. So in order to get our people to entice our people. Okay, let us take for instance in 1962. In 1962, when the Gairy government first called Armenia, Howard Blaze promised the people of Grenada that he would forge a unitary state with Trinidad and Tobago, and the people of Grenada would get the same pay as the counterparts in Trinidad. So they felt for that. So we voted for GNP to form the government so that we could forge a unitary state with Trinidad and Tobago. We could walk into Trinidad and Tobago as we want. We would get the same pay as them. At the same time, without even having conversation with Eric Williams, because Eric Williams was saying at the time that 1 from 10 lives not. After the collapse of the federation, Eric Williams didn't want no other union, nobody, and enjoying OPEC price oil. But we fell for a unitary statehood against the background that we will be paid the same monies, the same salaries as our counterpart in Trinidad. Look at it today, Mr. Pierre. Today, what we promised today?
Promise permanent work.
You know,
in 2008, they promised increase in salary, increase in pay. They use an old man to advertise increase in the elderly pay, and they trick the elderly.
So you understand? So we always fall in that trap. We are not learning, and the only way they could attract us is to give us those kind of promises that we feel is attractive, but they have never come to fruition. You have never achieved the reality of this thing, and we understand. You know, and we can't stop talking about Eric Gairy. And I want to say in the last few minutes. No, the Grenada police force was dominated by men. Eric Gairy is responsible for bringing women in the police force. And the women of the Royal Grenada Police Force must be grateful. And on Saturday, say I pray for Uncle Gairy, because without Uncle Gairy, there was no woman in Grenada Police Force. Because he's a male-dominated entity. You know. And in 1970, he brought Jennifer Houston in the Albert Hall in England to contest for Miss World. And Jennifer Houston of Grenada became the first woman of color, the first black woman to win a Miss World. You know, and these things we must cherish in our archives. You know, and like we forgetting Expo 69, you know, which gave us so much exposure to the world. To Eric Gairy, ladies and gentlemen, let's say I pray for Uncle, he will be 101 years today, you know.
You say the difficult things we do now, the impossible we do tomorrow.
Because they never believed that Expo could have been a reality.
You say if the children could dance, they could learn, send them to school.
No.
If the children could, they could learn, send them to school. We be black children, we don't believe people.
Let us look at the education. Today we talked about Tam CC, but we have Tam CC, but Technical and Vocational Institute, Tam CC.
University is the first time that
you know,
they will bury that.
No, that's what I want to make. Only from the education system. Eric Gairy realized that everybody cannot be an academician, right? So he said he built junior secondary schools like GSS, Boca, Waltham, Hillsborough Secondary, and their function was to teach industrial arts. You know, whether carpentry, mason, joinery, music, you know. The art he then followed. Gordon Hamilton, on a scholarship in Jamaica to come back and teach people how to do paintings, you know, because Eric Gairy understand the structure of our education system that everybody cannot be academician. And the last thing on me, last point, as we in St. Patrick, when in 1957, an island scholar named John George applied for a job as a bank worker, a clerk, to the Royal Bank of Canada. His application was turned down. The information was given to the banker, a Grenadian white, to find out from him. Why is it that you are not employing John George, an academician, a man with the qualification to work in the bank? And the only thing that disqualified John George because of the color of his skin, a black man. And so John George from St. Patrick was the first black man to work in a bank in Grenada, compliment so Eric Gairy and the Green United Labour Party.
And people used to go inside the bank and watch him. People go inside the bank and peep.
They making bus trip to go and see a black man.
Bus trip to go and see a black man inside the bank.
What a curiosity to see a black man in a bank.
But that gave people the hope that they could achieve anything what they want. That is why when they say it's impossible, Gairy said the difficult things we do now, the impossible we do tomorrow. And when they say action
and progress. Progress back.
And when he said you're going to make boat come up the river, the GNP wanted to laugh. They say it's the banana boat. Gairy never said banana boat. He said go make boat come back. You know? And this is the challenge we have in Grenada. But you see, the children of labor turn against labor. I constantly remind the line minister of social affairs, you are a child of labor. You are a child of labor. You grow up, you live in rural Grenada. You can't let the tears of our people burn you. You can't take money from the elderly. Your parents will be turning in the grave. You can't do that. So you must do everything within your power to give back the people the money. We don't have to have more calamity in Grenada, more destruction. Okay. Every time we have these issues, it boils down to...
That is why the greatest philosopher of all time has given that simple philosophy. Never allow prosperity to burn the edge of gratitude.
And that's one of the common problems in Grenada. That's why till like that I don't care about her. We have a lot of people in Grenada whose children have done well, but the children abandon the parents. They are not going to seek the interests of the parents. They let prosperity blunt the edge of gratitude. We must be appreciative. That's why Deacon said nothing going in the country. He's so sad and unfortunate. But brothers, today is an important period. Eric Gairy birthday will be on the 18th. Saturday. Yeah. If he was alive, he'd have been 101. The struggle, the British battleship ended up reaching Grenada on the 16th. And the struggle started 3 days after the struggle that leave. What was the name of the individual who was arrested with Eric Gairy?
Gaston Blaise.
Was the trade union leader was arrested first.
He was the general secretary.
Yes, he was arrested and Gairy gone find out about him.
And then the acting governor G.C. Green said he sent a telegram to England and said we arrested two. And that was the biggest mistake they ever made.
Yeah. We want to thank you very much for being with us today. Those scholars on YouTube. And we continue to make the call that Deacon Mitchell must return the money that he stole from the elderly, the physical challenge and disadvantaged children in our country. Thank you very much.
But this rebel he walked through Napoleon, who thought it wasn't very nice, and so Informative, entertaining, and first. Every hour on the